Are you ready, ladies and gentlemen, for a 200% move to the upside for Hedera Hashgraph? I already know the answer. It is yes. In this video, we're going to be showing you why we think that may be on the cards. We're going to start the video off by looking at the cryptocurrency market more broadly. We do this day in, day out in our daily market updates, but the bulk of the bull market is still to come. We'll be looking at what is historically accurate in regards to when alt season kicks off, how far after the halvening or out from the halving, whatever you want to call it, does alt season really kick off. And we're on the cusp of history repeating, ladies and gentlemen. We've got October ahead of us. We've got, in regards to Hedera, really just accumulation going on. We break the markets down into 4 phases. Those of you that have taken my market mastery course, which they're still currently 80% off on, will know this. Phase 1 is very much where Hedera is, and we're ready for that phase 2. We're currently at support in regards to that accumulation range that we are still in. And there's a pattern that has come to a head, if you will, at the very point in which we've come into contact with support, giving us confluence that ultimately there's likely going to be a break, or we may have just had it to the upside, or of this pattern that is going to see a run, taking Hedera back to that sort of 14, 15 cents range. It's currently at 5. We are going to be diving into that all in this video. There's also confidence in regards to the broader crypto space, as we think Bitcoin has completed its pullback. And really, altcoins have just given way under Bitcoin's weakness, and they will overperform on Bitcoin's strength. So let's start things off as promised with the broader sort of landscape. And to really simplify things, we've got the Bitcoin 4-year cycle theory represented on the BLX. The Bitcoin 4-year cycle dictates that Bitcoin moves as markets move in this kind of a 4-phase manner. Bitcoin 4-year cycle, though, is a real great representation of this. Ultimately, you get these kind of peaks and troughs, and this is all centered around the halvings. Obviously, it's post-halving that you get the bulk of the bull market, and we're currently following that today. The anomaly really is Bitcoin going in and putting in a high pre-halving. This is due to institutional involvement, which I think is far more bullish than bearish. The altcoins, of course, haven't seen that, but they shall eventually. So we still think the bulk of the bull market is ahead of us. Bitcoin very much doing what it does in and around the halvings, consolidating. And if we look at when alt season really kicks off, this is Bitcoin dominance and the BLX. You can see the last halving took 224 days. The one before that took 224 days. Bit of a coincidence, really. And this one, taking 24 days again, is going to sort of take you into early November, which is ultimately when we think alt season is really going to get rocking and rolling. So we're very much expecting that to take place. We're on the cusp of it. And when we dive over to the Hedera Hashgraph chart, we're seeing some phenomenal things. What we're going to be doing in this video is introducing a pattern to you guys, and some of you may be familiar with it, but we're going to be showing you some common traits that this pattern exerts and showing you that Hedera is ticking many boxes in regards to giving us a lot of confirmation that this is about to take place. And it's our opinion, not financial advice, just our own technical assessment of things as a technical analyst. If you look at Hedera, you know, we would really still say this is in phase 1. And you've essentially just had or are in a range of accumulation. If you throw up your Wyckoff schematics, it looks very similar. If you throw up, Stan Weinstein stage analysis, Dow's market cycle theory, you can see that we're still in this sort of primitive stage that ultimately, in our opinion, is going to lead to phase 2, the bull market upside, the bull, run for Hedera specifically. It's been a little bit weaker than other altcoins out there, but we do think it will overperform. I can see Hedera Hashgraph doing the exact same thing that Cardano did. And let's pull up the Cardano chart just to show you this once more. We've been saying this for a while now in the prior bull market. And you guys that follow me regularly will know Cardano for me was just shy of 100x altcoin. It really did absolutely spectacularly for me in the prior bull market. And you can see this is where Cardano was in the prior bear, obviously being 2019-18 or 18-19 and 2020. And this is where Hedera is today. You're essentially going to, I think, get a Cardano-like run out of Hedera. It's one of the most impressive distributed ledgers. It's not a blockchain, it's a DAG that there is, period. There's a lot going on. I mean, just one of the announcements, do go and watch yesterday's interview that we did with Brandon, the Hbar Bull. Just one of the announcements that comes out of the Hedera Hashgraph ecosystem. Entire blockchains are centered around one of those announcements as use cases. Hedera's got many, and with some of the largest institutions in the world. But you can see Hedera Hashgraph very much at that support. And the beautiful thing is in regards to the pattern that it's currently setting up. So we have a journey where we can see Hedera getting to the $2 range. But if you look at this pattern that Hedera is currently in, as it's coming into support, it is essentially a falling wedge. Now, let's talk a little bit about falling wedges. And let's throw some schematics up on the screen to sort of help you identify a falling wedge. This is a good schematic that I found because I think it perfectly captures the characteristics of a falling wedge. A falling wedge, kind of self-explanatory, falling, descending, typically something you'd see in a broader uptrend, or bottoms of a market. It's quite common. Essentially, a rising wedge is the opposite. So a falling wedge, you've got this restriction of price action. You start off typically with this big sort of impulse into it. Then you get a smaller impulse, and then you get a smaller impulse. And what's essentially happening there is volatility is restricting. And that's how you get this kind of wedge-like, doorstopper-like pattern before you then sort of break out of it and see that volatility go from constricting to sort of expanding. And that's essentially what we think is going to take place for Hedera and where you're currently at. So we'll put this schematic on the screen as we go through. I'm going to show you a number of examples of other falling wedges that we had success for here on the channel, going all the way back for the likes of Ethereum Classic to 2019. Also Sol, we've got Sugar. There's lots of falling wedges that have all played out to the upside that Hedera is essentially today where they were. And we ultimately think there could be a 200% move on the back end of this. So now that we've kind of gone over and shown you what we think is one of the better schematics, we really need to get our technical analyst course out there because the amount of technical analysts that is just nonsense out there is insane. But when we look at Hedera, we have confidence in regards to the broader space. We think Bitcoin is on its way to completing that sort of descending sort of pullback, broadening pullback that it's been in. That's ultimately going to see the altcoin market really start to excel. And not only did Hedera come into support here at this sort of range low, if we drop down the time frames, we can see a very good visual representation of a falling wedge in much the same manner that we looked at the previous one. In fact, let's pull up a different chart for this. Let's use this chart here. And let's show you what we're kind of identifying here. So we're really looking at Hedera to be in a bit of a falling wedge, depending on how you want to draw this. And you're essentially at this stage now of breaking out, basing out. You can see this kind of rounding going on in regards to bottoming price action that we're seeing for Hedera. You can see this kind of rounding that we're seeing. You can see you've got your big blow off impulsive impulse. That's your 1, then your 2, and then your 3 is kind of restricted. It's kind of like, think about a golf ball or something, and how it would bounce. It would kind of lose momentum, if you will, or restrict on volatility, ready for that expansion in volatility. And I think Hedera is really on the cusp of that. Not only have you broken out of this sort of capping descending grind line, you're also sort of supporting off it. There is quite a clear falling wedge here, in my opinion, depending on how you want to draw this, whether you want to extend it. You can see just how evident this is. Not only that, you do have support here in regards to your macro support. If we look at another couple of examples, you can see your characteristics of a falling wedge in here, even in regards to sort of smoothing out, the rounding out at the bottom here. If we look at a couple of examples, like Helium, for example, again, Helium found support. This is a beautiful example of a falling wedge on Helium. So Helium, for those of you that don't know, is a deep in project. Recently moved to Solana. You can see your characteristics here as we showed you at the start. 1, 2, 3, and then you break out. And this is essentially the section that Hedera is currently at, ready for that upside move. I think for Helium, for example, this upside move from the point of break is around about 114%. So we're suggesting, I believe Hbar has a smaller market cap than HNT. And I don't think this is done, by the way. I think this is going to see broader continuation. Helium is in a sort of macro uptrend, in a very kind of, those of you that have done the market analysis course will know what we're looking at here. Phase 1, breakout into phase 2, retest, continuation. And your falling wedge is coming at support, just like Hedera is currently at support with the falling wedge that it's currently exerting. Again, you can draw this in a number of ways, but the characteristics of this being a falling wedge are very, very evident. And you can see the restriction of the pattern ready for a breakout that we think is likely going to see that 200% upside. If we look at, and we look to take a target here, and we include this big impulse here that was obviously on the back of the BlackRock news, how you get a target for a falling wedge is you basically, depending on where you want to draw this, so if you want to take it from here, if you want to take it from down here, this is ultimately what you're potentially looking at. You basically take the width of the first impulse and you apply it to the point of breakout. You could be looking at a sort of 15-cent Hedera Hashgraph price. We'll show you a couple of examples of falling wedges in a second. You're going to sort of start to march your way up. And you've got to think in the broader context of things. Remember, this is still a range. Once you get here and you take this, you're then in a sort of phase 2 uptrend, if you will. So we showed you helium as an example. This was one that we had a lot of success for back in 2019. Most people probably won't remember me from back then. Again, talking about that falling wedge, talking about the traits that it exerts. 1, 2, 3, rounding out marginally lower lows. Your sort of breakout point before you see a real rally to the upside. This is essentially where the likes of Hedera, in our opinion, is today. You can see the similarities that we're kind of highlighting here. Let's pull it up on a daily time frame. We don't think we need to go quite down to the hourlies yet. But you can see, get off draw tool, what we're looking at here. 1, 2, 3, just like ETC, Ethereum Classic, rounding out before you then sort of explode to the upside out of the top of it. And that's what we think Hedera essentially has ahead of it. ADA was one that we had a lot of success for. We were pretty infamous for calling this, certainly when everyone was calling ADA dead back in the prior bull. You can see this one really messy, and it really depends how you want to draw this. So some people really looking at it like this. I think it's not a perfect draw in regards to, it's not the cleanest falling wedge, just given the volatility of crypto. But if we go all the way back here, let's pull this up. You can see all the big wicks that you had. And we've sort of trimmed the wicks. But you can see again what we're showing here. Just like with that schematic we showed, it's at 1, 2, 3, and then you sort of break, and then you expand out of it. And we think Hedera's on a very similar path, ladies and gentlemen. Also, Sol, this is one that we've got a lot of grievances with because, of course, we got capitulated at around about $17 just before it went on its big run. That's the game of trading, I'm afraid, guys. Again, even in this, you can sort of see you've got your 1, 2, 3, and then you sort of break to the upside and really expand. The same thing is going to take place for Hedera Hashgraph, ladies and gentlemen. You've got the likes of one recently is Sugar. Just to show you some examples that I'm currently looking at. This is a recent one. 1, 2, and then you've got your third, and then you sort of expand out of it. This is essentially where Hedera is today. Again, because of this sort of skewing here, it's not the perfect falling wedge in terms of symmetry or whatever you want to look at, but it is evident in our opinion, and we've shown you plenty of examples that exert the similar traits of what Hedera Hashgraph's price is currently doing that all led to obviously an upside break. And then we've got Bitcoin. This is a real ugly one, but this is something we're also calling, certainly in regards to the FTX final capitulation low. So we've shown you a lot of examples here of falling wedges that all resulted in upside that look just like where Hedera Hashgraph currently is today. You've got to remember as well, Hedera is currently at that support. We think there is an amazing crypto bull market ahead of us. There's lots of confluence in regards to technically when we look at things. That falling wedge target is going to take you to around about 14, 15 cent. From a 5 cent price, that's going to be absolutely phenomenal. I think my average buy on Hedera, being totally honest and transparent here, is around about 8 cents. We're happy with that. We can live with it. We never said we were going to get the perfect bottoms, but what we will be able to do is give you the relative low of a market, get positioned for a bull market, and hopefully get out for a bear. So do become a subscriber if you want to be a part of that journey. On that note, I'm going to love and leave you guys. Thanks a lot for watching. See you all in the next one.